All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the March 17th of 2023 Public Acquisition, Disposition, and Construction Committee meeting of the Kingston City Land Bank. My name is Mike. I serve as the Executive Director and moderator for this committee meeting. And with that, I turn it over to the committee chair, Bob Dennison.
Okay, welcome everyone. We can dive right into the agenda. Abby and Stefan. So really nothing to say, but be patient. Is that where we are?
That's right. I think we're probably maybe 2.5 months out from quiet title actions being resolved by the city, but I'll have updates every month.
Okay. I keep walking by those houses and thinking, soon we'll do something with them. Union and German lottery. You guys have been talking about this, huh? And I know Bartek talked about the mechanism by which we would draw. What have you learned from Pathstone so far?
Sure.
Is that correct?
You broke up a little bit, Bob, but I think Daniel and I certainly. Daniel, do you want to jump in, or do you want me to kind of try to give an overview of what will probably happen for the lottery? Or
I could try it. Also,
yeah.
Bob, maybe just call in instead of trying to use Wi-Fi. I think that would probably work better. You're a little hard to understand. So the lottery, I think where we landed, Mike, jump in if I'm wrong, is that basically we will, so everybody's in the same lottery because the houses have the same eligibility requirements and everything. So we'll basically draw the first one, and the first number drawn will be the top choice for that house. And then we'll do two alternates. The alternates will go back in the pool for the second drawing. And we'll basically just do the same thing. And then I think, sorry.
No, Daniel, I'm sorry to cut you off. Please continue.
No, I think what we're requesting is that Pathstone basically ask the families if they have a preference, which we can't promise to accommodate, but in the off chance that both first contenders actually prefer the opposite house, I think it's fair and nice for us to just let them switch to the house they actually want to live in. But that would only come into play in the case that they both prefer the opposite house. Did I get that right?
Yeah, wait, so just so I understand, so the only time we wouldn't allow, per our other conversations, we wouldn't allow someone to say, they only want it to be in one drawing, or to switch and say, I got this house, but I don't want this house, I want that house. The only time we would allow that is if the two people who are picked in the lottery each desire the other house, essentially, and then they can agree to switch. The one part of what you said that I don't quite maybe you could shed light on was that I don't quite understand is, were you saying that that the backup for the first house will also be eligible to get to be awarded the second house? I mean, I understand why that would make sense, but it also might leave us in a situation where one person is essentially the awardee of both, the awardee of both houses, which obviously can't happen.
Well, then they have to buy both. No, well, I think what it would be is that, so the first pick is like locked in as they don't go back into the pool. Mm-hmm. But if you are like the second pick, say we do East Union first, if the second pick for East Union ends up being the first pick for German, then it would just
Then,
move to the third alternate for East Union would become the second,
so
right?
we would,
So basically,
We do a new
because the other
alternate.
factor here, yeah, because the other factor here is like we're unlikely to have, more than say 5. We don't know that right now, but
Yeah,
I think if we, like for instance, if we did 3 but then didn't put anyone back in the lottery, we might only have 1 or 2 additional numbers to pull. Does that make sense?
yes.
yeah.
This could change. It's just Mike and I talked about it, and I think this makes sense.
I think a piece, I think it does make sense, Daniel. I think 2 things that are be super important are whatever we're doing, we have to say what we're doing at the meeting and be crystal clear before anything takes place, because
Yeah.
people will probably, so Pat Stone will be informing households of their case number, that nobody, that the land bank board will not be aware of, but the case number will go into the lottery process, which I guess we haven't totally finalized exactly physically what's going to happen. We had some conversations, Daniel, about that yesterday, and maybe we could talk about it here. There were some cool ideas, but that maybe we should reserve the final plan for it based on how many folks are how many households are actually in the lottery. Because like you said, Daniel, if it's a very limited number, there might be different ways to do it, as opposed to if there's a tremendously large number, which is always possible.
Yeah, that
So-
makes sense to me.
Okay.
And yeah, I think basically I write up sort of, here's exactly how this is going to run, and read
Yep.
that out before
Yep.
we draw anything, and then
Totally.
everyone's clear.
There was
This is Kyle. I was thinking about this a little bit. Does it make sense to not do the lottery by house, but by family, and have them pre-rank the houses? So you pick a
Yeah.
family and they say their preference, and then if there's a conflict, that way each family can get in the house they want, and then if there's a conflict, whoever got picked first wins.
So group them, because what would also happen is the case number would be abbreviated with a .1, .2, -1, -2. And you would say, you're saying, Kyle, group all the 1s together and the 2s together and hold the lottery that way?
I'm saying that every case number applies, they rank which house they prefer, 1 or 2.
Mhm, mhm.
And then you pull that case number and they get a choice. And if you pull 2 case numbers that want different houses, then you have no problem. But if they want the same house, then the house that was picked first has precedence. And then, I know that complicates things.
Yeah, I mean, it simplifies things. It simplifies one matter, which is the issue we're resolving. But I don't like the idea of basically giving the first person a preference and the second person not a preference in order to having I don't like the idea of having the 2 houses essentially be ordered in that way, where there's this kind of hierarchy of choice, I guess. I don't know if others disagree with me, but something about that strikes me as a little odd. Maybe
Yeah,
not. Maybe it's fine. Maybe
it's
I'm
also a
overthinking it.
lottery though in the first place.
Yeah, it totally is. I mean, it's I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it.
This stuff is tough by design. I mean,
Yeah.
I think Daniel, you said this, and I would recommend that the preference aspect only come into play for the contract selection, not for the alternate selection, because then you run into this whole mess in real time with, revising things, and we could definitely pull it off, but I think it would be confusing to anyone who's watching why we did what we did. But it's complicated by design because it's important.
Well, what if we did it this way? I mean, what if we did it this way? What if we pick, and this kind of combines some of what Kyle is saying a little bit, but what if we you basically say, first we're gonna pick house, we take German Street, and we're just gonna do the first choice for German, and we pick one out of the lottery hat. Then we actually move to the first choice for the second house, and then we pick that one. And then we move to the alternate for the first house. because then no one who's the alternate can also be the first choice because the first choice has already been picked.
I like
That
it.
makes,
That sounds like it makes.
that makes sense to me. The other thing that came, and so this will probably be like an evolving conversation. We'll
So-
see how. Sorry, Daniel.
I have a clarifying question. In that scenario, would the alternates just be alternates for either one if one of the first people falls through or doesn't want the house?
My sense is, well, it could be either way. You could just have two alternates that are ordered 1, 2, if either one falls through, or you could have an alternate that is designated for each house. I'm not sure if there's a why one would be necessarily better than the other. I defer to others on that.
I would think that we should have a minimum of 2 alternates per house if we can get it. We've had in the past, families unfortunately withdraw who were the contract selection
Yeah,
family, and then we were one person, one more withdrawal away from having to redo the whole lottery. And I think my recommendation would be that they should be like assigned to each house so that we don't have. So we kind of minimize the possibility in which we might have no one who wants to buy a house. I don't know why that would ever happen, but to redo the lottery would be a real bummer.
but I guess like think about it this way, like
Yeah.
let's say we have 6 people who qualify and we pick the 2 number 1s for each house. We have 4 left in this hat. We don't know who they are. And then we have a choice. Then the choice is either to pick alternates for specific houses or essentially to make a list, right?
Mhm.
Like we could do it and just say like these are alternates 1 through 4, and
Maybe
we're
that's
gonna,
easier.
and regardless of which house falls through, we're gonna move down that list. So like if house, let's say
You're right.
in a ideal world those 2 work, but like if house A falls through, we go to number 1 on the alternate list, and then if house B falls through, we go to 2 on the alternate list. But we'd have to make clear that if under if it's unfortunate and both houses both the number 1 picks fall through, the person who's top of that list doesn't have a choice between them. They have to go to the first one the first one they were offered, basically.
Okay.
Like they have to. I mean, I don't know. For some reason, that makes more sense to me than saying like
Me too.
here are the
too.
alternates for each house, because then if you run out the end of that list, you can't go to the other people who are alternates for the other house.
You're totally right. I think my brain got stuck on the first 3 that we sold, which had different qualifications for different houses, and that's why we had wait lists that were specific to each.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's
Where these
that's
are
what my
exactly the
brain was
same.
thinking.
Yeah.
Cool.
Does that
Awesome.
make sense? Does that make
Yeah, I
sense?
like that better.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little less clunky.
Yeah. Well, Daniel,
Damn it.
When we do this,
speaking
we should
of,
also keep in mind that we're going to have. Oh, sorry.
sorry, Kyle. No, go ahead.
When we do this, we should also keep in mind that next round we're going to have 2 different bedroom sizes, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not going to be the same pool of applicants. So or it might be, but it's just something to keep in mind.
But I think,
Yeah.
we could do the same thing there basically, which is like, there are going to be very few. Well, there might be some. I guess there might be some overlap, right? People who qualify for both houses, even in the next round.
Mhm.
So then it becomes more complicated. We can't really have like you want to have 2 I was going to say you could have 2 lists, but we would have 2 lists where somebody could be on both lists.
Right.
But I mean, I actually think you could basically do the same thing there. But you basically say you can be on both alternate lists, but if your name is called off one of those alternate lists, it is automatically removed from the other alternate list, kind of thing.
Right.
Like you can't actually get offered both houses.
Right.
Okay,
We
yeah.
don't want people to have both houses, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay,
Good.
just for the sake of argument,
Yeah.
say
Okay.
Yeah.
you're an alternate. You're an alternate. You're number 2, or sorry, you're number 1 of the alternate. You get offered German Street because that first choice fell through. But you don't want German Street. You want East Union. There's valid reasons for that. East Union is a 1-level house, so if there's an elderly person or something, like, I can totally understand that. So then number 2 gets a stab at German, but number 1, under what you're saying would be out of the running, but if East Union does come up as a possibility, should they still be eligible? Does that
I
make
think the
sense?
only circumstances in which my feeling is the only circumstances in which they might be eligible, and this is like, I think pretty standard for a lot of marketing campaigns is if you have like a real reason to need, for example, a specific kind of house. So like if you have mobility issues, if you're very elderly and can't and are going to struggle with the stairs, like I think, and this is where we should probably write certain kind of formal marketing guidelines that like say some of this stuff. Like I think we should allow it in certain contexts when it makes sense for the household. But not generally speaking, you couldn't just say it alphabet large. You have to be able to document something. Like we, like when I for work review like and I'm sure Mike used to do this. Like when I get a request like to switch units in one of the affordable housing projects that I work on for work, like you have to show like you want to switch units because you're like I reviewed one today where somebody is getting medical care, they can't go up and down stairs. So like they had in those situations we would allow them to get a first floor unit. I think it should be somewhat similar for these houses, but that's my feeling.
Well, if you're unable to negotiate this, German, why would you apply for it? You should just apply for.
Well, because we're not
for
allowing people
union.
to apply for one and not the other, I thought, right?
It's
Well,
the
no, but
same
I'm saying from the
qualifications.
applicant's perspective, I'm an applicant, I can't go upstairs. Why would I apply for German? Why wouldn't I just apply for union?
Well, I think we weren't distinguishing, Bob, in the registration process and the application process, kind of qualifying for a program. And the qualifications are the
right.
same for both homes. They will be different though, as Kyle pointed out, for the next two homes.
Right.
So
So maybe if we could ask Pathstone, instead of just asking for a preference, say why that's your preference.
Pat Stone will know this information. I think
Yeah.
the less that the board
Okay.
knows, the more they're kind of insulated from, making totally objective.
Right,
comments like
right,
this.
Agreed.
totally.
But Pat
Pascal
Stone
should
would
be
know.
reviewing these documents, not us. Yeah,
They totally are. Yeah.
yeah.
And they will be, and I think we can get some real-time feedback the morning after the lottery about what things could look like, or if alternates come into play. We can definitely get real-time feedback back to the board in an anonymous way about people's, but specific circumstances maybe.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sure.
The last thing I wanted to talk about, Daniel, was on Thursday. We had a little chat about this in advance of this meeting at the officers' call. And someone had suggested, I think it was Bob, that maybe we could do like a bingo machine that he might be able to have access to, as opposed to pulling strips of paper out of a hat. I have no preference on this, other than I think it was presented as being different and not flippant, but a different way of doing it. I just wanted to say that because we've only got one more meeting until we do the lottery, maybe 2 meetings, I guess.
Yeah, it could be more transparent, but let me see if I can get the machine, but it just might be more transparent.
I'll get the ping pong balls, Bob.
All right, okay.
If
It
people want to
certainly
do that.
sounds more fun.
Well, yeah, it should be a somber thing in a certain sense too. Like it's a really important thing for folks.
But it's a happy thing. It's not a sad, it's
That's
this
true.
is exciting. You get a house. This is great.
That's true.
But
If you're selected.
if
Can
you're selected.
Can I add two quick things?
Yeah. Owen.
One is just to put it in a plug. I know that it's maybe coming up, but putting the plug for if you have the time to do a quick dress rehearsal, even if it's in this ADC meeting or something, so once you feel like you got the process, that it's not you don't feel like you're figuring it out live. And the other thing is just a reminder from the last time that we did a lottery that we had people on live that I believe didn't know what their case numbers were. And
Yep.
so
They will now.
they were live being like,
Yeah, totally.
whose case number is 643? And so if there's a way we can let people know, that's great. Or at least make it, make that information available to them so that it is transparent, even though it's not broadcast.
Totally. Thanks. So I think we learned from the last time, and now the case manager will be giving folks their case number. So I think, and at the info session that Kyle and I did, we invited people to actually come to the meeting or jump on the Zoom. So I think folks who are in the lottery will be either physically in the room or on Zoom, knowing their case numbers that the board won't know. So, that'll be interesting, but they won't have that horrible 24-hour period till they talk to Pat. Figure out
Yeah,
what's
this one will go very smoothly. You'll see.
And meanwhile, something crashes in the background.
Yeah, Daniel fell down.
Oh, sorry. I love to think I muted myself and make a bunch of noise.
All right, great. Let's move on to Franklin RFP. I know Owen sent a draft of it out, which I have not had a chance to read yet, but it's good that it's moving forward. Are we done with Nail It Right? Are we done with them?
So we're not done with them. I have an in-person meeting with them on Monday. They've been chasing down their plumber and electrician, or I shouldn't say chasing down, but resolving their final lien waivers with their plumber and electrician. And so we got an in-person with the plumber on Monday, which I'm told that I'm walking away with both final lien waivers, but I will, we'll see. But that's what's holding us up from handing them a check. I would like to ask you, Mike, to think about how I can get a check for them, though it won't be delivered until we have those documents in hand.
Sure. Would you want to have that check on Monday in hand so that?
Yeah.
Or
I would like it ready. Yeah.
Maybe we could talk offline about the specific granular things, but you can get a check whenever I get it to you this weekend.
Very good.
That helps.
On the RFP one, I just wanted to make everybody aware that it's happening, and I think the maybe the most important things are to just let people know what the dates are on it, so that they get a sense of the timing of things. So these are like the overview dates for it. So hoping to issue on Monday. The architect is smushing some comments together into this so that things are a little more unified. And so maybe this will move by one day. If it's not ready, though, it should be. And basically, it's going to be in a month from now. And if I remember right, it comes in like right before your next meeting. So we'll have opportunity to like circulate what came in and then kind of talk about next steps in that meeting.
Good.
I do think to add to that, committee members, what our philosophy was behind this would be to get the ADC to be comfortable with recommending to the board that we have authority to negotiate a general contract within a certain budget amount that we're working with Stacy in the finance committee to articulate what that number is, rather than selecting a specific vendor at the board meeting, because like Owen said, it's a time crunch, if that's okay, but just to socialize the idea that that's the concept that we think will move us through the process to moving into construction quickly, faster.
And we'll have an idea of who the proposers are.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. You'll have all the proposals. There might just be some issues in that 24, 48-hour time crunch where we're searching for additional information, or your application's incomplete. We need this, that, and the other thing. And so it would be more difficult to recommend a specific vendor for the board meeting rather than a concept and authorization.
Right. It's right. No, that'd be fine. And it's conceivable that the board meeting, if a committee member knows something, we may be in a position where we want to say this vendor's, has a bad reputation, or, there may be some discussion about the vendors. at that meeting, which is okay. I think.
So I don't have too much more to say else about the RFP except trying to get it out, and I'll update you when it is actually live.
Good. And, we will, one of the things I just want to point out, we've made the decision not to have performance bonds and other bonds in this, with the risk that if we had a defaulting contractor, we could deal with it. And I think we've learned that we can, and I think that's a good thing if people have conversations about bonding and why we've chosen not to use bonding. I think we've demonstrated, and Owen, you've done a good job on this, demonstrated that extra expense is not necessary the way we manage our projects. So I think we ought to just keep that in our mind as we move forward, and more people are interested in what we're doing. Just a thought.
I think that makes sense for a certain scale of project, but I think if we did bigger projects, I don't know if I would.
Oh, I agree with you. Yeah, no. If we were doing something, I agree. If we were doing something big, we'd want to have, and that goes to what kind of contractors you're trying to attract.
Yeah.
So I think we're okay with that.
But thanks.
yeah.
You've wrangled a lot, it seems like, to pull this together.
So good.
How long, Owen, do you anticipate actual construction to be to complete this project?
So I think with that June start, I think we're shooting for like a substantial completion date that's before the end of the year, though probably not a home sale before the end of the year. So that's kind of the what I'm estimating.
That makes sense. Okay.
All right, let's move on to legacy cities, review construction. I think it's good. The matrix is good. I love Owen's matrix, and Kyle's matrix is very interesting about the drawdown. The two documents together kind of a good picture of where we are. What do people think?
Owen's got his matrix pulled up now, Bob, just so it's on screen.
And I'll give the 2-sentence version, which is East Union, we're at 71% already requisitioned, at least reviewed and requisitioned, and not too much more left to do there. That's all good. Rogers only shows itself behind schedule because we have this January start date on the schedule, but that's a little bit fake. The reality is that it's really starting in earnest later in the year, but it's essentially only started as far as asbestos abatement and electric service. Hurley is also in this second round. Rogers and Hurley are kind of in this second round together, and so that one is ahead of schedule just because it's been what the contractor uses to send extra resources or get some things done in between when other things are not ready to keep moving. And German is the one that's running to catch up. It's still probably 2 weeks behind its schedule, but still anticipated to catch up there. So I think a similar version that I highlighted before as far as contingency getting spent. Not a lot has actually changed in contingency amounts since we last spoke. I think a couple things just moved into actual change orders rather than anticipated issues or change orders. But yeah, German is pretty tapped out, but the overall picture is needs to be continued to be watched, but no red alarms.
Awesome.
Questions?
just to keep the conversation moving, maybe while others are thinking of their questions, I think it's great that we're able to demonstrate that we're at this point where we're managing larger projects successfully on time and on budget with full transparency. And the sale of Rogers will be the one that I think is from a marketing standpoint, a disposition standpoint, maybe the most challenging, because it is a 4-bedroom. And so we haven't sold a 4-bedroom before, and that's 4 to 8 people, and that's a very limited pool when you get into higher household sizes. But financially, this is in really great shape. So
It'll
thanks for
get you warmed up for Grand Street. All the bedrooms that are squished into that house.
I was gonna say,
we're
the houses look great, Owen, too. So thank you for, and I probably work very closely with the GC. So thank you for everything you've done.
Yeah, sure.
I can talk about Kyle's spreadsheet. He unfortunately had a conflict and had to drop off. But Kyle, I don't have anything specific to highlight in the spreadsheet. I think it speaks for itself. The process of drawing down funds has proceeded without really a hiccup. There is some nuance that may come up. I touched on it at the finance meeting that we are trying to work with CPC, the bank, and I think they will agree to it. I hope they will, to allow for the retainage that's currently being held back from the Novo funding, aka our equity, be used for hard costs, so that we're not paying more in construction loan interest by using those funds, by using the construction loan to pay for that amount. So that might be an update that Kyle digs into a little bit more by the board meeting. I know he's patiently working with the bank to try to get some resolution of that, but that's my only update on that spreadsheet, unless there are other questions. Cool.
All right, Aaron, I think you're in charge now. So
Thanks, Alan.
It's gonna be total chaos. Hold on.
I can read the next agenda item, Aaron.
Yeah, I have it. I just had the chart open, but I just go back to the agenda here.
Sure.
Go ahead, read the next one.
No, okay. The next item on the agenda is the Hamilton sale. I would like to give some updates. We have a contract. We have a fully executed version of that contract being held by our attorney. The purchaser is pursuing financing. I don't know when the closing would take place, but we do have a license agreement that expires at the end of this month. So I think belt and suspenders, I recommend extending the license agreement by a timeline that folks should talk about, but 60 days or something, just to not have any hiccups. It seems unnecessary, but it's only necessary when it's necessary. And so I think belt and suspenders, folks should consider extending the license agreement by some timeline, which I can take care of. Tell me what you want.
Should we just, did we do that at the board? I think we did last.
I think we did. Yeah, maybe the ADC, that's a great point, Daniel. Maybe ADC should recommend some timeline to extend and the board should approve it.
So we extended through what, March? Was it through March 1st?
March 31st.
March 31st. Okay. So should we recommend extending it to April 30th?
I would give
Sure.
it more time.
Even longer. I would say longer. Yeah, agree with Aaron.
Okay. June 30th? Another 90?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'm okay with that too.
Perfect.
Do we
Yeah.
know?
I mean, I think like he's
I want
truly
to
like
go back
on the
for a minute. I'm
cusp
sorry
and-
that I got lost. Let me make one more point about the stuff with the stuff that Owen and Kyle are doing. I think it's important that we write down those processes now. We have them, they work, they're in place. We need to document that. We're going to need that documentation when we have our conversation about our $1 million. So I just wanted to say we need to document that as our process for managing projects. So for what that's worth.
Great point about we have to be clear on our policies internally. We might even want to pass some policies about how we do what we do.
Yeah, once they're documented, we can do that. Once they're documented, we can adopt them, at the board level.
Owen has that great flow chart that I think he's brought up in a few meetings. That is how we stay on time and budget and process funding. Maybe it could be as simple as following the flow chart. I know that was in a board package some time ago.
Yes, I think the flow chart, and I also think, I like the documentation. I like these reports. So I think they need to be referenced, the flow chart, these reports.
Okay.
And that's how we do it.
I'll put that in the next board package for discussion. I think it's better to get this stuff out of the way. I know at finance, we're talking about an investment policy, like really, like you said, Bob, early on, like having all this already taken care of. Would be helpful.
I think at some point
Yeah, make
too, this committee should probably revisit the disposition policy and see which kind of parts of this we want to incorporate, because things have changed. I think the policy is still fine, but to kind of have it in one place for the public, if there were things to incorporate.
Cool.
Cool.
All right. So we solved Hamilton. We're going to go to June. Legacy Cities number 2. Go, Mike.
Okay. Legacy Cities number 2. Wanted to highlight that this is kind of current. This is definitely currently anticipating moving forward on the same timeline-ish as 3rd Avenue. There's a few more variables on 3rd Avenue with the potential for new zoning. And when that passes, that would give us more visibility on what the pre-development should look like. For both projects, the state has made it quite clear that the $2 million that we applied for on Monday of this week, for pre-development expenses and other expenses on the projects, it's not eligible. Any expense that we have between now and the award is not eligible for reimbursement. So because of that, what Kyle and Owen and Stacy and I are doing is putting together all these RFPs for architecture, for probably civil engineering on 3rd Avenue, architecture on both sites, and clean outs on Legacy Cities 2, and anything else that we think we need in anticipation of that May 1st award. So as those come together, we'll probably just circulate them around to the committee, hopefully for discussion at next month's meeting or the following month's meeting, but we'd like to have everything ready to go as soon as the award is given to us by HCR, so we can make up for honestly like a month of lost time if we couldn't spend the money. But those were my updates on that.
Lose him again for a minute.
You broke up a little bit, Bob.
Sounds like a great idea.
Cool.
It sounds like a very
Aaron, you're gonna have to translate.
Sorry, Bob, you're going in and out. Cannot quite hear what you're saying. But that makes sense. The sizes, can you remind us of the sizes of these homes, the Legacy Cities homes?
Well, the physical size is probably easier for me to picture than the bedroom count. I know Owen just noted that, what is it, 52 grand has a lot of,
Yeah.
no, is it 488 Hasbrook that has?
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, Aaron, like what it would turn out to be. You're welcome. I'm happy to open them up for you if you want to walk through them and take a look. But I think the plan going forward, which is I think just the evolution of an increasingly sort of better system, is that we would put an Owen, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we would want to put in a preliminary architect, and we want to put an architect, not the architect of record, but put architect in these properties once we clean them out to conduct some preliminary measurements and bring that back to committees to try to get some input quickly, but in a reasonable time frame for what the layouts could look like. So we wouldn't know until that process was done how many bedrooms we would have for each, but they're single family homes. If that helps.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Okay, that's helpful.
And I just want to acknowledge that Owen had sent around his job meeting notes, which I think are super helpful for folks to read through and kind of see how he's managing the process and the dialogue with the contractor. And I didn't see any major issues worth flagging or discussing, Owen, unless there was something that you wanted to bring up on this.
No, I mean, part of sending the past month's notes is that like anything that happened 4 weeks ago is like old news at this point. You know? So it's like it's kind of more to just be able to clue people in about details if they're curious.
Okay. I wanted to bring up one other item, and then we did have some questions that have come to me via chat from the member of the public who's participating, who's still here. Okay, great. The city is anticipating the passage of the disposition policy. And I think I mentioned before the meeting, I just wanted to mention at the committee meeting that there would be additional properties coming to the land bank for consideration to acquire. So more to come on that, but when the policy is passed, the city is expected to respond quickly to act under that policy and present us with additional properties to consider, some of which we may have already rejected. And it would just be a matter of following the policy, why they would be bringing those to us. But maybe by next month, month from now, we'll have that list. Yep.
Mike, just thinking ahead a little, how do you feel capacity wise about dealing with vacant lots?
I honestly think that it would be a bit of a distraction from the resources that we're putting into Third and Legacy Cities 2 to try to pursue the sales of these smaller parcels to contiguous property owners or anyone, I guess. And the city is planning to issue an RFP. I guess they're pulling together an RFP for those properties. If assuming that we were to, again, decline to pursue acquisition of them. So the city is ready to do that. I think it would be a bit of a distraction for us.
You mean for like all of them or for ones that are over the threshold?
Well,
Okay.
what I was just told was in a previous meeting was that anything that's over the threshold is definitely being included in an RFP, and anything that we reject would also go in the RFP. So little postage size pieces of property and things like that that we've already previously rejected, we would now once again decline to pursue, and the city would put them in their RFP.
Right. I mean, my recollection is like we mostly rejected these things because of the price, but you know, there is good potential for some revenue back to the organization on some of them. And then I'm always harping on like, you know, our basic function is to put stuff back on the tax rolls. So
Yeah, you're right.
it would be nice to sort of prove that out on a variety of properties, I think, but
okay.
I also don't want to, you know, overload, but
Well,
I just can't even really remember like what they are.
Me
I
neither.
think very, very few of them actually, I think, are side lots. I think for the most part, they're just like real weird up in the woods. Like, how is this even a tax lot? But anyway, I think before we reject them, we should really look at them and try to
100%.
determine like which ones we think we could pretty easily sell and get back on the tax rolls.
100%.
Like that, what is it, Catskill Terrace, the one that's like runs behind like 25 lots. Like I feel like we don't have the bandwidth to deal with that. But if like, I think there's one on Prospect maybe, that's just a, you know, there was a house there at some point, and that seems like an easy sell.
Yes.
I don't know.
The other one that sticks out for me is the turtle crossing sign.
Yeah.
Seriously, if you drive by that now, they're grubbing the site as if they own it, whoever's working on that. So I think they would want to buy
Oh, really?
it. Went by it this weekend for some reason.
Unless they have an adverse possession claim already.
They're not doing anything. Anyway, yeah, so let's look at them when we get the list. we'll go back out there, or we can crawl through the woods again, you and I and anyone else who's interested. To look at these tiny little lots or try to find them. That was a big part of it.
Yeah, or like there was that North Street one that was like adjacent to the whole Hutton,
Right.
you know,
Right.
thing, and like
That's big.
maybe they want it, maybe they
That's
want to
big.
pay a lot of money for it.
It's a great idea, Daniel.
Because I think it would also, like, you know, the way that it's set up in the policy is the city, you know, there's a split of like the net sales revenue and stuff. So if we can start
Yep.
like paying money back to the city, and we can do it faster, then we're going to be able to do it for at least Legacy Cities houses, because those are like 2 years out. I think that would make the finance committee happy and just sort of prove out the concept of a land bank for everyone.
No, that's a great point. I agree with you. To the woods we go. Cool. So I don't know when I'll have that list, but what I was told by the city this morning was that they're looking to act quickly. So as soon as the policy passes, we should see a list, and I'll of course circulate it as soon as I get it.
Cool.
Last thing to discuss, are people okay with answering some questions from the member of the public who's on here? There's basically one question. This is Luz Morel, whose preferred method of communication is via typing, just due to probably some translation. So the question that's asked is that this person is interested in the house that we own. Hello, thank you for your patience.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us. If I misstate your question or you'd like to add more information, please do so. Maybe you could ask your question, or would you like me to ask it?
Yes. For example, you have houses that you sell assets, need some repairs, and the customer want to buy the house and make the repair by themselves. Are you allowed to do that, to sell the houses and then the people can make the repairs by themselves?
I could take a stab at that. We have done that in the past. We have tried to dispose of 2 properties through this kind of as is, you know, that someone would have to do all the repairs on the properties. Both of those properties have either been sold or are in the process of being sold. We don't currently have plans to do that in the future, but that doesn't mean that we won't. We kind of are beholden to what properties the city gives us the opportunity to purchase. So all of the properties that you see on our website are either currently being fixed up by us, or they're in the process of being sold, or they have been sold. So we don't have anything currently, but it is something that we've done in the past. So I would encourage, if you'd like to find out as soon as we do that, just to sign up for our mailing list. It's on our website. If you put your email address in there, you would get an email if we had properties that were for sale that way. Does that make sense?
Can I just add on
Yeah.
to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like Mike said, right now we just don't have very many houses. So part of it will just depend on whether we get a lot of houses from the city of Kingston or only a couple. But the city is planning to sell some of these houses not through the land bank, and those would all be as is, leave it up to the owner to do the renovation. So I'm not sure how the city is going to do that exactly, but basically they'll put out a request for proposals, and then I think the Common Council will decide. So that's just another place to watch. Honestly, they're more likely to be selling as-is properties sooner than we are, I would say. If that makes sense.
It's cool that you're in San Francisco there. Your background. Did you have any other questions you wanted to ask us?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the information.
Sure, of course. All right, the committee chair has to call the meeting. It's
In Bob's
acting-
absence, in Bob's,
acting committee chair.
do we need to vote to call this meeting? We didn't vote to open it really, so
I
I
don't
call
think so.
this committee meeting to a close.
Great.
Talk to you all soon.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.